Yo, what's going on, guys? We're here making the Philadelphia 76ers off-season video as I walk the streets of Chicago. We're at the NBA. Right now, it was just the NBA draft lottery here in Chi-Town, but we're actually here for the G League Elite Camp and the NBA Draft Combine as that all goes on this week. I want to hear your thoughts down below. What do you guys expect the 76ers to do this offseason and why? Now, I'm literally like right outside of Chinatown, Bridgeport, south of the Red Line, which I heard isn't the best of areas, depending on who you ask. But now, like, comment, and subscribe. We're going to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. And this is a team that has questions. How are they going to build around Tyrese Maxey? Who is part of the long-time future? And why? So let's get right into it. They went 45-37 this year. They have the 22nd pick via Houston in this year's draft. Unrestricted free agent with bird rights are Quentin Grimes, Kelly Oubre. They do have the early bird rights to unrestricted free agents, Kyle Lowry and Andre Drummond. Team options on Don Barlow, Trendon Watford, who I expect both to be back. Then Marjon Beauchamp has a unrestricted non-bird rights, so I could expect him to be someone who could be maybe brought back, maybe not. Tyrese Martin is also a restricted free agent, but non-bird rights. Dalen Terry has a $2.4 million team option. If they want to keep those guys in the youth movement going, I could see that being something that comes to fruition. Now, this is a team that had a 21-win jump, went to the conference semis, and when Joel Embiid looked like himself, when this team was fully healthy, everything was firing all cylinders. Nick Nurse is one of the best coaches in the NBA. He has a championship pedigree. He makes in-game adjustments, or just adjustments depending on the roster, that a lot of other coaches can't make, and he can do it on the fly and adapt to the personnel. With a lot of free agent departures and a need to be able to fill the unreliable minutes availability of Joel Embiid, Philadelphia is going to have things to answer. They have three guys making at least $40 million on the payroll. Joel Embiid making 58, 62, and 67. Paul George making 54, and then 56 million. Tyrese Maxey making 40.8, then 43.6, and then 46.4. Tyrese is the only one probably being paid a fair wage, or a wage that is arguable, reasonable for him, while the other two, you could argue, are overpaid at this point. Embiid has logged fewer than 40 games in 3 straight seasons and has been on the floor for only 29% of the 76ers' possessions. That forced Nick Nurse to roll out 30 different starting lineups this season, 90 different versions over the prior 2 years. Because of Embiid's health in the postseason, Philadelphia had to use 3 different starting units in just 11 games. When Embiid did suit up this season, Philly went 24-14, which is a major contrast from playing 3 games below 500 with him on the sidelines. He hung 86 points in games 5 through 7 of the first round. Injuries plus a 25-game suspension for this past year limited to Paul George to just 78 total games since signing with the Sixers in 2024. The team's affected by the missed time by their 2 former All-Stars. But the positives are that we saw Tyrese Maxey put on 20 games with 30-plus points and 5-plus assists, ranking 5th in the league. VJ Edgecombe finished 3rd in Rookie of the Year voting, averaging 16 points per night and leading all rookies in minutes, looking like a guy who could, at the very least, be a all-star at the level of like Victor Oladipo, if not better. Edgecombe also led the entire league in loose balls recovered. He's a great defensive player who's a growing offensive guy. And when his shot hits, like we saw in the playoffs some nights, especially in that last game in the first round, the potential is huge. The backcourt of the future, VJ and Tyrese, is set. Now, you got to figure out if you're going to re-sign Oubre, Grimes, and Drummond. Can the Sixers afford to bring back 2 of the 3, justify paying the luxury tax for a team that finished outside the top 6 in the East? Philly is also projected to be first apron team if they brought back both Grimes and Oubre. With the Sixers' first-round pick via Houston, they're currently $14.5 million below the tax line and $22.5 million under the first apron. They have 5 guys, as I mentioned earlier: Barlow, Watford, Adam Bona, Terry, and Jabari Walker with team options or non-guaranteed deals. Philadelphia has until June 29th to pick up the team options on Barlow, Terry, and Watford. Bonus $2.3 million deal becomes guaranteed if he's not waived. A $4.2 million exception is also available, but it would, by using it, it would push them as having a hard cap on the first apron. Now I want to say this. Can I hear your guys' thoughts on Adam Bona? Like, the playoffs are rough, and there are some moments that you could argue there are boneheaded mistakes, but the potential and the athleticism, if I mean, maybe they decline the team option, or like they waive him and they bring him back on a cheaper deal. What are your guys' thoughts on him? I mean, like, is he fine as a minimum reserve third string big, or do you think it's time to move on and give somebody else the opportunity, like a Janai Broom, or obviously Don Barlow has surpassed him, but Don Barlow is more of a 4 who moonlights at the 5. And in a great scenario, they would be able to move off of Paul George's contract. I think Joel's contract's probably harder to move. But unless Philly is willing to attach draft capital, it's going to be hard to move off of either of those contracts that are both, like, dude, a large percentage of any team's cap. And I think it would also go against what Daryl Morey said that they're going to do, and basically build around Tyrese, Joel, VJ, and Paul, which they like their core. But the Sixers only got 11 bench points in Game 3. The Sixers have options to build through the draft, minimum contract market, and re-sign their own free agents. A trade is tough because 88% of the next season's payroll is tied to Joel Embiid, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, and Edgecombe. But they could, as ESPN mentioned, follow what the Celtics did, draft Neemias Queta, Jordan Walsh, Luka Garza, Baylor Shireman, and Hugo Gonzalez in the prior offseason, which those players combined only make $13 million. And if Philadelphia brought back its own free agents, Oubre played a career low 50 games, maybe he gets a near minimum deal, and Grimes signed a 1-year deal, and for the second straight season, he played 75 games and averaged double figures. So, and he couldn't shoot well from 3 as a starter at 21%. He did shoot 38% from deep. Drummond averaged under 20 minutes a night, but still pulled down 8.4 boards. And Barlow has a team option that they'll pick up. They could extend Bona. And then the other one is George, who I don't think is going to get extended. Bona is interesting because he did have a career high 18 games started, averaged 6.3 points and 5 boards. He had 12 games with at least 7 rebounds and 10 games with at least 3 blocks. This team needs a backup point guard and shooting, especially if Grimes and Oubre or one of them isn't brought back, and just depth at every position. The Sixers averaged 24.6 assists this season, the second fewest in the league. The Sixers have 7 first-round picks over the next 7 years, 3 of which can be traded. Because Philly owes Brooklyn a top 8 protected 2028 pick, they can't trade their own first-rounder until 2030. They have 12 second-rounders available. So I think that's going to be, like, the most interesting thing about all of this. And I want to hear your guys' thoughts. I think at this point, you just go ahead and try to find a way to improve the backup point guard position, because you're going to move off of Kyle Lowry, and find a lot more shooting. I know that's going to be hard. I think you're going to have to bring back a lot of the roster and try to make a lot of out of nothing. Let me know your thoughts if you made it to the end. Like, comment, and subscribe.